Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Show, Week 7 NFL. Dieter back on the program. We'll get Jay White back on. Dieter, I don't want to threaten you or make you insecure at all. Jay White did great. We only did tutties last week. She got 2 of 3. We're all a team here. We're working together to find winners, so it's not a big deal. But
sure, let's go with that.
Let's go with that. People helping people. Let's get right into what do you want to start with? Player props or touchdowns? I want to let you decide.
I think the people love the touchdowns. I think we provide the people what they want.
I know. Start with your best stuff up top. So let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen and ask you for your first tutty play.
Yeah. I'll just tell you right now, you don't even need to share it. Now, he is questionable. There's a little bit of wonkiness here. Make sure you got your good data. I don't think this line's going to change one way or another. But I like Diontae Johnson, wide receiver, Carolina Panthers. 3 touchdowns already on the year. After years in which he wouldn't score a touchdown, back on the board with a touchdown this week. They're going up against Washington. We got to know what Washington's defense is now. They cannot stop the pass. They can't stop a lot, but they're certainly not stopping the pass. And yes, we don't have to like the quarterback situation. We don't have to like the running back situation. We don't have to like the offensive line situation. They're going to move the ball a little bit. They're going to get in the end zone once. And who do I expect to catch the ball if they're anywhere near the end zone? The one guy who can separate on this team in Diontae Johnson against man coverage. A lot of guys might be able to separate. He will certainly be able to separate. So I'm looking at Diontae Johnson. Washington, 10 touchdowns against wide receivers this season. To get it at plus money, I get it. I understand why. All the reasons I just listed out. But I feel like there's value there, especially for a guy who's gotten the monkey off of his back this season, getting back into the end zone again after years.
Yeah,
without getting in.
Couldn't get in somehow in Pittsburgh with oh my God, I already forgot. Kenny Pickett. There we go. Kenny Pickett
2022, 17 games, 147 targets, 0 touchdowns.
Crazy what happened.
He had 5 last year, to be fair, and already 3 this year. And again, he's the guy that the Red Rocket's looking for when they're in the red zone.
Red Rifle, but I know what you mean. Red Rocket was a different term, but
I don't know if it's a rocket or a rifle anymore. But I've run out of R words to describe his noodle arm.
That alliterate with rifle or with red. Yeah. So for Diontae, I'm completely with you. I have 0 qualms with anything you said. I doesn't have the reception stuff up right now. I'm not quite sure, as we're recording this on Friday morning, what would have taken down his other props. There's probably some news going on out there. Regardless,
he's listed as questionable. I haven't gotten a good read on if he's in or out. That's how it plays. I would take this thing all the way up to Sunday before I made a play, because again, we're already at plus money. I doubt that it's going to get. Yeah, I doubt there's going to be a lot of movement on this.
A void doesn't hurt anybody, so whatever. Right. Like, completely good with that. But all right, let me jump into my first tutty play here, and I'm going to go to Cincy. And I guess this game is in is it in Cincy or Cleveland? My bad, I already forgot. But it's the same state. Does it really matter? We're talking about Chase Brown for the Bengals, and I think it's been decided who is the runner. Now, look, Zach Moss was hurt for the last couple weeks, and obviously Chase Brown's usage went completely up as a result of that. Right. That all said, he's still the goal line back. He's still the guy getting all of the touches inside the red zone as well. And that was back to the week before. Zach Moss had a fumble and then didn't really play the second half before he got hurt. So it's already turning into Chase Brown's backfield. And that was the conversation for a while leading up to this point, right? And that's really what I care about is usage. The Browns somehow have given up a ton of touchdowns to running backs. They still have a good defense in terms of pressure. They still get to the quarterback when Myles Garrett is healthy, and they will be able to limit the run for sure. And I don't love Cincinnati's run blocking either. All I care about is Chase Brown doesn't need to run between the tackles to get his touchdown against the Browns defense that is giving up these things a lot of times outside the lines in terms of the way that they're getting the scored upon and getting big chunks of yardage up against them. So 5.5 yards per carry. I don't know how you would replace him or really eat into his touches with Zach Moss. And the only thing you would worry about, by the way, Zach Moss, 3.4 yards per carry, pretty big difference, 2 yards per carry there between these guys. And Zach Moss, there was concern maybe he would be more of the goal line back. Like I said, that has not even been the case when the two of them have been in there. So I'm no longer worried about Chase Brown just being used in specific situations as sort of a scat back. He's definitely getting a lot more of the carries at this point, and the snap share should be around 65-35 in this one.
The Browns already given up 6 touchdowns on the ground to running backs this year. You're spot on with Brown also giving you the possibility of catching it out of the backfield. That's something that Joe Burrow really likes to do. They really like to get you into man-to-man and then bring the running back out of the back on a little bit of a short wheel route. Maybe just get him out into the flat and try to get him to the corner before anyone can catch up to him. That's a great option against a Cleveland defense where linebacker is a big question, and you can just run on those defensive backs all day long. You got to look at scheme. They're an outside zone team. You got an outside zone runner. Again, you don't have to feel good about the pass blocking. You just have to feel good that it can get it done one time here. I just think there's a lot of options on the board for this little bitty fella to get into the end zone. And I'm with you. It hurts me to say it because I'm a big Zach Moss guy, but the injury, the fumble, and then, of course, Brown taking the most of his opportunity as it's been presented. Hard to imagine that this week is some sort of flip back to the old paradigm. It might get back there. Chase Brown might have to lose his opportunity, but he has the opportunity in hand currently. And I think Cincinnati's going to put numbers on the board this weekend, and there's a lot of availability for Chase Brown to be part of that explosion. I don't know if I want to go explosion, but I think this could be. I think this could be a boat race.
Yeah, they're going to be in the red zone. I mean, when they take their foot off the gas is going to be the question to me. I mean, the Browns are down bad, and
it's horrendous.
I'm not sure who. I mean, Njoku's looking like he's going to play. I still don't know who Deshaun Watson's going to throw to. So,
well, that would require him to be able to complete passes. So it doesn't really matter.
Yep, 100%. But all right, who you got?
Here's how bad the Browns are. They're already doing the let's take care of this guy as a decency play for Amari Cooper. Like, I know that Amari Cooper has all these numbers that say he's awful. I recommend you watch I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I recommend you watch a Cleveland Browns game and be like, is Amari Cooper really shitty, or is this the worst quarterback I've ever seen?
And people are putting together plenty of highlight reels that you can just find online of all of the quote unquote targets. And like,
is this Odell Beckham's dad? Is he created the cottage industry?
It is ODB's dad, like, in the sense that he is that all you need to do is find the tape and you can go, okay, Amari had 14 targets this game. I count 5 catchable balls in those 14 targets.
By the way, one of my big pet peeves in all professional sports these days is a junior that we don't know the senior. Like, if I don't know who senior is, you don't need to tell me you're a junior.
Totally.
Even worse, the senior, and it's like, oh, great, so now I need to know your child.
You have a kid.
So that's weird. I don't like that. But in the case of Odell Beckham Jr., I actually now know Odell Beckham Sr. based on his YouTube game.
Important to differentiate between the two.
A very important differentiation. Are we talking about? Are we talking about the shit poster? Or are we talking about? Well, I guess he's kind of a shit poster too.
Right. All right. TD number 2. I love this one.
This one's crazy wonky, but I'm going to play to the audience here, and that audience is you, Josh Lander.
Me.
And by the way, this was my guy coming out of the draft. I loved Tyrone Tracy Jr. Don't know senior, but Tyrone Tracy Jr. Coming out of Purdue. He was a wide receiver. They converted to running back. And I know that a lot of very sharp folks in the fantasy space in particular were in on him at the beginning of the season. I've been in on him since last February. He was like, him and Kamani Vidal were my 2 dudes out of the backfield, and love to see them both thriving right now. And I think more and more for Vidal as we move forward. Regardless, I know Devin Singletary's coming back. As of right now, this line has a lot of movement in it. Wait to see where it falls, because again, it's not getting anywhere close to negative, right? We're at plus 150 for a Tyrone Tracy Jr. touchdown against Philadelphia. Philly, 17th, pretty average. Some of the counting stats look good. Pretty average when we talk about EPA and rush defense this year. You also have the threat, much like a Chase Brown, of catching it out of the backfield. Really, really good receiver out of the backfield. Third downs, red zone. These are the opportunities that Tyrone Tracy's going to get. If it's on the 1 yard line, I bet Devin Singletary's in there. I don't think that the Giants are going to get to the 1 yard line very much. I think if they score, they're having to score from 10, 15, 20, 40 yards out. And Tyrone Tracy is a weapon for this team. He's going to still get a lot of playing time. I think Dable went out and just said that today as we talk on Friday morning. I'm all the way in on Tyrone Tracy Jr. I'm going to keep holding my stock. I'm going to double down on the stock. I got 150. if you're not feeling great about plus 150 on a Tyrone Tracy Jr. thing, one, you can wait, and I imagine that it runs up a little bit because of Singletary. Two, you can get in as you see this and try to get Devin Singletary, who, if he's on a board anymore by the time you see this, last time I checked was like plus 700 to score. So that was just caked into the fact that no one knew if he was going to play or not.
Right.
I imagine, again, this is going to change a lot, but I like, frankly, either of the New York backs to get into the end zone this week against Philadelphia, whose defense is overrated by some of the counting stats, and I don't think the market has taken into proper account their vulnerabilities. And two, like, if I had to choose between one of the two of them, I'm definitely taking Tyrone Tracy Jr., and I think Brian Daboll will too.
Yep. I think so too. I mean, it's the future at this point. You're not playing for this season anymore. And I mean, you just want to get Tyrone Tracy some looks, and you actually have the benefit of splitting those looks with Devin Singletary when he's healthy. It's really nice to be able to just sort of lean on another back to take 8 to 10 carries away from Tracy. But would it shock me in the least? In fact, I would project 15-ish carry, 14, 15 carries. I think they're gonna be able to move the ball through the air. I think Neighbors is gonna cook for sure. He's happy to be back. It was a concussion. He wanted to play last week and they wouldn't let him. And now he's back against the Philadelphia secondary that's taken up a ton. So regardless, wherever you are on the field, I still think Tracy is going to get a good amount of touches. Maybe the goal line back is considered to be Singletary, and you'd live with that. But like Allgeier is probably considered the goal line back in Atlanta. Are you scared to take a Bijan Robinson touchdown as a result?
I absolutely
not saying Tracy is him, but yeah. Well, only because of the fact that it's probably minus 180, and that's just
it's 195. Josh,
yeah,
I looked at that and I'm like, who is putting the money on that? Who is doing this?
In a vacuum, you would not be scared to take Bijan Robinson just because Allgeier gets more goal line carries is the point I attempted to make. But you're speaking to my heart here. As you know, I love Tyrone Tracy at this point. I know anybody who watches him run and play will do that. The way he ran last week, I know they couldn't do it, but I mean, he looked just as good as he had. It was really like, are you a flash in the pan? It's a bad Bengals run defense, but regardless, I'm with it. And I personally think they'll be able to move the ball. They need Wan'Dale Robinson in there, but I think there's going to be more points in this game for the Giants than people might think, or when they just look at this matchup on paper. So
I think that this is also one of the first games that you can say in a long time for the Giants, perhaps even since they went to the playoffs a couple of years ago, that they're going to have a competent, normal-looking offense, right?
Yeah.
You think about how with Singletary in the backfield, he wasn't getting the yardage. It was kind of just chunky and not in the good way, just sort of, 3 yards in a pile of dust. And so what are you doing? Oh, here's Wan'Dale Robinson, or here's Neighbors. We're going to give him a little flip pass. You're having to do this collegiate thing, which has its time and its place, but it was way too often and in all places for the Giants in the beginning of the year. Daboll was having to go into the bag to try to get something to work. They don't trust the quarterback.
Right.
Now you have a more traditional running back, right? You do have a guy who can get you short yardage. You now have a guy who's a real threat out of the backfield, both as a big play runner and as a receiver. You have 2, if not 3, solid wide receiving options. No, you don't have a tight end, and no, you don't have a left tackle. But get in line with about 15 other teams in the league now.
That was a tough loss, but
I'm just I'm all the way in on Tyrone Tracy Jr. Have been for a long time, and I don't think that there's any reason right now to be scared off because, again, as you noted, this is more about I feel like the Giants are going to move the ball play.
Yeah.
And if they move the ball, it's because Tyrone Tracy Jr. is part of the solution.
Hugely. Yeah. Once we get yards and stuff too, I think he's going to have some reasonable lines. First, maybe some undervalued usage, but I'm going to get to number 2 here for the tutties. I pulled him up a second ago. I'm looking at J.K. Dobbins. I got this at minus 116. It's still available on Caesars at minus 116 for J.K. Dobbins to get a touchdown. That's crazy to me. And it sucks that we're in a place in the world where minus 116 is a value play for a running back. But this is so clearly the number 1 running back in a backfield that now doesn't have Gus Edwards anymore because he's on IR and he didn't see a snap last week either. So they've been ready for this. So, I mean, to all the idiots out there, like this guy who thought Gus the Bus was going to have a big season on the Chargers, you were wrong. J.K. Dobbins is the lead back. So this should probably be about minus 150. And he's going up against the Cards, man. I mean, if there's a team you want to go up against in terms of rushing, or whatever you want to do, really passing or rushing, you can do it against the Cardinals. And that's going to continue to be the case in this one where the Chargers O-line has been really good. Both their lines have been very, very good. And overall, I think we come out with Jim Harbaugh in this one and we go, well, he's top 3 in terms of run to pass percentage. I know he's chomping at the bit to be number one. I know he just wants to continue to have the most rushes and design those things for his guys and just play smash mouth football. And J.K. Dobbins is his workhorse at this point. So they're going to get the ball inside the 20 quite often. They're going to get inside the 10 quite often. The only thing that would really scare me is Kyler takes off for a bunch of 50-yard rushes, or MHJ finally gets hot if he's healthy enough to go. So like, other than, and even in those, I guess those situations would only help J.K. Dobbins. I was saying I don't think they're going to have to pass very much. I think they're going to rely on the run. Positive game script is the really fun, weird way I went about saying that.
Well, let me throw a little bit of a counter in here. And I mentioned him a little bit earlier. This is my other guy, Tyrone Tracy Jr. and Kamani Vidal. And the idea that Gus the Bus is out, there's no question. He was blocking Kamani Vidal's spot, but Vidal has come in and in sparse playing time, to be fair, has looked really impressive. And I think it should be noted that they're using a rookie out of Troy as a third down back. Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman are using a rookie as a third down back. And this is not a guy who is built necessarily to be a third down back. This is a guy built to be a workhorse. This is a guy built to pound between the tackles. He's at plus 320 right now, at least on DraftKings for an anytime touchdown. If you don't love the value, though I do think your value is apt with whoever the fuck we were just talking. J.K. Dobbins. Sorry, I lose my mind when it comes to abbreviations. J.K. for a TD. If you don't love J.K. here, you gotta love Vidal, because the workload is going to continue to increase. If you don't think that, hey, Gus is out, are they going to really ride Dobbins all the way to the finish line? Do you trust him after all those injuries to get to the finish line? Get in early on Vidal, because the value is there and it's going to be gone in a couple of weeks, if not next week, because I think this guy has been the real deal. And here's something you need to know about Vidal. He was a workhorse back going over 200 carries a year at Troy. He never fumbled. Not once. He didn't fumble once in his college. Like, if Jim Harbaugh doesn't love that, I got texts from the Chargers because I was big on Vidal early, and I got a couple texts as soon as they got him, and they're like, "This is going to be so awesome," and I'm like, "You fuckers! Like, I know it's going to be awesome. It's going to take a while. It might not be this week, but plus 320 is worth a little sprinkle, maybe just as a hedge."
Yep, I'm with it. All right, touchdown numero 3 for you to close out the TD segment.
The absolute saddest pick that you could possibly make, Alexander Mattison, Vegas running back against the Rams, plus 175. Who's going to be taking away the carries? Now, the question is, can they get into the end zone once? I would say yes. I'm not a big fan of this Rams defense, and no one's a fan of this Raiders offense, that's to be sure. But if it's going to be anybody, it's going to be Alexander Mattison. The Rams, 7 touchdowns allowed in 6 games to opposing running backs. I haven't liked what I've seen from their defense. They're young, but they don't have the heft in the middle. They don't have the speed on the perimeter. Like, there's something just off. It hasn't clicked. It probably won't click. It's not a good defense. And if Vegas gets in, it's got to be Mattison, because what can he do? Not a lot. What can't he do? Also not a lot. He's just the absolute median running back, and I'm getting plus 175 on just a kind of a guy who they're absolutely going to trust if they ever get themselves an opportunity to pound one in
against an atrocious defense. I'm just overtaking Raiders players. I'm not going to argue with you. And mostly I'm over trying to figure out when Brock Bowers is going to get into the end zone with that pass game, which is just putrid. I mean, Brock Bowers is going to get peppered with targets, but Madison's the guy now. I mean, 14-15, you sub Zamir White as questionable. That's key to me, because I think, like I was saying, 14 and 15 carries in the last 2 games, getting pretty much the entire red zone attempt share there in last game against the Steelers, which is a much better run defense than is the Rams. I think that's easy enough to say. So the Rams might be scoring some points, but
we're talking about the second worst defense in the NFL EPA per play this year in the Rams. I mean, the only team that's worse is Jacksonville.
Yep, perfect. So, all right, I'm going to close out the Tutty segment. I was going back and forth, but I got to look. I'm going to go to Allgeier until he doesn't get essentially the majority of the goal line carries. Like, you want to talk about a goal line back. Everybody talked about it last year. We acted this year like maybe it wasn't going to be the case because Bijan's still the guy, but you're still getting, this says plus 169. Nice. but that's underdog. I don't like to give away the DFS price. So yeah, 145 is still worth it. I think as long as this is above like plus 130 is kind of where I start to get out of it. But I took this early at like plus 165 and immediately plummeted. I think anything, like I said, above plus 130 is a good play here for him. If you look at, and let's make this 2024 here on outlier.bet. But if you look at the red zone rush share, 7 red zone attempts last week against the Panthers. And this is going to probably be a pretty similar situation. I mean, Seattle's run defense, no bueno. This is a defense that is built on the ability to rush the quarterback as its only true like positive attribute. They're still 13th in terms of rush or pass EPA. I would say because of that. There's really, I mean, Enrique Woolen, by the way, is also questionable, might not even play. DK Metcalf is not a bad look in this game, by the way, for a tutty. And I think he and Drake London are both going to have really big games in this one. Maybe talk about that more in a sec. But this game is going to have a lot of plays. I would not be the least bit surprised if both Allgeier and Bijan get in. We're talking about 2 of the top 5 pace of play teams in the league on offense, right? So the Falcons were super slow in week 1. Kirk figured it out. They're now 4th fastest. The Seahawks have been playing fast all season because, to be honest, all they have going for them is the ability for Geno to like get a lot of targets and get a lot of attempts. Right, exactly. So I think they're going to keep this pace of play up. But for the Falcons, they're happy to run the ball against this putrid Seahawks rush defense. And I think Allgeier, even if he gets 8 rush attempts, I think 4 of those are going to be inside the red zone or at least in scoring opportunities. So
I love plus money for Allgeier. I looked pretty long and hard at the player props for yardage in this one, and I just didn't feel great about it. I wanted to go under on Bijan just because I still feel like the market's overvaluing him, certainly more valued than Zach Robinson his offensive coordinator values him. Yeah. But you're right on Seattle. Think about what Isaac Guerrero and Patrick Taylor were able to do on Thursday Night Football. 49ers ran for over 200 yards, and you have 747 yards in 6 games against. Like, there is no resistance whatsoever. Their linebackers don't fill gaps. They're trying to run a chaos defense. They don't have the personnel to do it right now. They don't have the pass rush. They're supposed to be a pass rushing team. They don't have the pass rush. Yeah. Now, maybe that changes coming off of the mini bye. But Seattle's just a great opportunity here. And again, everyone wants Bijan because there's this wish casting. You now have 2 offensive coordinators in a row who are like, yeah, we're not that big on Bijan. We'd prefer Tyler Allgeier, who is a very, very good back and would be considered one of the premier backs in the fantasy space, in the DFS space, in the betting space if he was on any other team. But because he's behind a guy who was drafted in the top 10 and is unquestionably a stud talent-wise, which doesn't take you all the way home, we have this wonkiness. Take advantage while you can, because at a certain point, I do think that the values are going to even out because that's how the play is gone on the field. And
he hasn't necessarily gotten as many touchdowns. This is Bijan, by the way. I was actually just looking at how he had a 39% rush share last week, which is insane. But they are also running the ball a ton against the Panthers. So he still had 15 carries. But regardless, Allgeier still out there getting double-digit carries is a wonderful opportunity, especially where he's getting them for the touchdowns.